I'm Jennifer Byrne, and thank you for joining me. Our mission tonight is clear: to bring together the two excellent subjects of books and food. Well before Oliver Twist scandalously asks for more, books about food have been part of our lives. But lately it seems if you don't have at least one room devoted to books about food, its study, its handling and/or its consumption, you really are letting yourself down. Of all the glorious books about food, there's perhaps none more splendid than this one. Be bold with bananas. Such good advice for life. I will share the wonders within a little later in the program, but first I need some friends. And my guests have all made food writing a major part of their lives, but each has come at the subject from a very different direction. Let's meet them.
Mikey Robins is one of Australia's best-loved comedians, star of television programs including Good News Week and Live and Sweaty. He spent 7 years co-hosting the successful National Breakfast Show on Triple J. Mikey is back on breakfast radio at Vega FM and is a passionate amateur food historian. Gay Bilson was a restaurateur and cook at restaurants such as Tony's Bongu and the acclaimed Barara Waters Inn. Since leaving the restaurant scene, she has written about food and gastronomy for major Australian newspapers and journals. Her book, Plenty, was published in 2005 and won numerous prizes, including the Age Book of the Year. Lindsay McDougal is guitarist with punk band Frenzal Rom and host of the breakfast show Myth J and the Doctor on Triple J. He has contributed articles and recipes to several vegan cookbooks. Marion Halligan is an award-winning short story and non-fiction writer, novelist, reviewer, essayist and journalist. Her food and travel writing includes Eat My Words and Taste of Memory, released in 2004. Her novels include The Fog Garden and The Point. Her most recent novel, The Apricot Kernel, was released in 2006.
And here they are in the flesh: Mikey Robins, Gay Bilson, Lindsay McDougal and Marion Halligan. Now let's start tonight with food in fiction and the way what a character eats and how much and with whom is so often used to tell us who they are. I'd like to get a quick reaction from each of you, the favourite example that you have of this. Marion.
Well, the one I can think of is R.S. Murdoch, The Sea, where the character who's the narrator, Charles Araby, tells us what he eats. And it's very strange, but he thinks it's terribly important. And so the first meal he tells us about is anchovy paste on toast with beans and celery and tomatoes, and then he has English cheese, has to be English because they're the best, Wensleydale with New Zealand butter on hard water biscuits, and then, curiously enough, he has bananas mashed with white sugar and a little thin cream.
And what do we know about the character from that?
Well, we know that he is highly opinionated and he likes to eat very much, but he has certain ideas on the food.
Lindsay, what's your favourite?
I really like Tita from Like Water for Chocolate, which is a pretty easy choice because the whole book's about food, but how her whole life from the moment she was born is spent in the kitchen, and not only does she cook food for a whole extended family that she learnt from the person who cooked in her mother's house, but the way that she is feeling flows into the food and then has effect on everyone who's in the house and who eats at the various meals that she prepares.
OK. Gay.
Well, my gut reaction is actually to mention a very tiny scene in Don DeLillo's White Noise, which is quite an old novel now, mainly because he celebrates the fact that the family love to eat in the car, not facing each other, which is to undo everything that we've ever... we romantics like to think about the table, conviviality and nourishment all rolled into one. But my serious reply is...
It sounded pretty serious. That's a good character study. Sounds very Don DeLillo.
My serious response is Italo Calvino's marvellous short story, Under the Jaguar Sun. An extraordinarily complex tale of a married couple of academics who go to Oaxaca in Mexico have an extremely erudite guide who takes them on a tour of Aztec temples and ruins and tells them the story of that most of us know now about cannibalism. If you won the football game, you actually wanted to be eaten by the gods. And the couple are extraordinarily affected by this story, and the woman particularly. And as they learn more about Mexican history and the Aztecs, they also eat meals together. For instance, chilies in a walnut sauce, and there's quite a lot about the meals they eat. But the interesting thing is that the husband begins to, instead of looking into his wife's eyes, begins to notice first her nose and then concentrates on her teeth. Mexican cuisine is extremely complex cuisine, with the spices used to enhance the flavour of human flesh or to disguise it. And all this while, the husband and wife go through this different and their relationship to each other changes.
It would.
It would. It's a truly wonderful story and beautifully written.
And I hope we shall return in this program to cannibalism. Mikey.
Can I just say I'm a little scared right now? Actually, my favourite food moment in literature is not actually about someone eating. It's Milo from Catch-22, and the whole convoluted process he goes about smuggling eggs, you know, from one part of Sicily to the other, and it's that sort of wonderful meeting of commerce and illegality and pleasure and fun, and also anti-establishment that's behind the whole book. And I think it's probably one of the best examples of Heller's, you know, that way where he just piles plot upon plot.
And uses food to be part
and
of
uses
it.
food, yeah.
My favourite is the leopard. You know, that at the prince's table when they bring in these burnished gold mountains of macaroni and pierce them open, and this fragrance of cinnamon and sugar escapes, and it cracks open to show chicken and truffle. I love the phrase, in the exquisite hue of suede. What about sexy books? It does seem, I mean, it's almost a cliche, it's always fruit. As we know, oranges are not the only fruit, but it's mainly peaches and pears and figs. A question for the ladies, because I suspect this is a male thing. Does it work for you? Does it tell you anything? Do you find it effective?
I suppose a lot of sort of chewing and nibbling and sucking of bones and fingers is often thought to be sexy.
OK, chewing's not good.
and the swallowing is a problem as well when you...
Chewing under the jaguar sun.
There's a lot of chewing. In fact, I think one of the sexiest images was actually from a film involving food is Tempopo, that scene where the young Japanese pearl diver eats the oyster out of the gangster's palm. Or is it just me?
That's a film, not
I know, but I'm just getting aroused while I talk about it, so I'm happy.
And of course, food is a great device for evoking the past, for triggering memories. I mean, it's one of the things it does most effectively, quite grandly, in a book like Remembrance of Things Past, the famous Madeleine.
One little biscuit and off he goes. It's like an acid flashback, but it's actually a little pastry.
That's true. Madeleine.
Yeah, Madeleine.
If you haven't read the book, you probably know the story, and he dips it in lime tea and his whole childhood rushes. But down to more common things. I'd like to have a bit of a chat about food in the books of childhood. I'm thinking about, look, really primitive things like an Enid Blyton, the homemade lemonade, the lashings of ginger beer, the jammy scones with cream.
See, I think I missed a lot of that because when I grew up in the 80s, and I did read a lot of that, about that sort of stuff, but I was always, you know, this isn't really your classic literature, all right Vegemite, and unreal banana peel, and of course far out Brussels sprout. But they less focused on your lashings of ginger beer and you know, jam fancies. It was more jelly belly custard pizza pie all mixed together with a dead dog's eye, slam it on a pancake nice and thick, then eat it all up with a cup of cold sick. Now this was the food that I was interested in when I was a kid. You know, you wonder why parents can't get their kids to eat stuff. there's no cup of cold sick offered. When all I'm reading from my June Factor books is making me very hungry.
I think one of the first things I remember is, even though the books were written long before I was a kid, was the Narnia books by C.S. Lewis. They were written, in the very austere period. There's always that sense of, like, when he goes through and goes to the Ice Queen's palace and there's a feast there, and there's always, this is the fantasy of, between the wars Britain and post-war Britain, where all these books were written, where there were these huge fantasy meals that were basically the food that people couldn't get.
The only food I remember with any humour now, but not then, was my mother's early watermelon, which was the only apparently inventive dessert which she ever made. Because,
please describe it.
You would like to hear about early watermelon?
It's in your book.
It's not a fruit, I believe.
I have to try and get this right. You need a glass bowl, preferably on a pedestal, and you make a raspberry or a strawberry jelly, I can't remember which, and turn it into a flummery, which I think you do by whisking. Is that right?
Something like that.
And add passion fruit seeds to it.
To make it look like a watermelon, because they weren't here.
And a layer on that is then custard, which I remember as being powder custard and my mother remembers as being real custard. And on top of that, lime jello, which isn't whisked, and of course is the rind. So you need to look at the bowl on the side, and the bowl is shaped like this, of course. It's very much, I think, a sort of woman's weekly recipe of the time, isn't it?
And you grew up to establish Barara Waters. You have survived your childhood.
Well, actually, if you want to talk about mother's cooking, God bless my mother. She'd put a steak under the grill, go outside, wash the car, and then turn it over.
We're moving to non-fiction now. Food in history books. Feasts, there's a long line, it seems, of feasts, of famines, of sieges, of seizures in some cases, like England's King Henry I, who dropped dead after an overlarge meal of lamprey eels.
Serves him right.
It was very mysterious to an Antipodean child to learn that he died of a surfeit of lampreys. And you thought, what can that mean?
Surfeit of lampreys, I think they were a band in the 80s. Along with Flock of Seagulls.
You read quite a lot about food and history.
There's a part in this book, Food and History, and as a lapsed Catholic and someone who likes their food, there's a wonderful description of a bunch of monks in France in the 14th century who are desperate to eat red meat on a Friday. So they create a theological argument, which the Pope approves of, to say that the tail of the beaver is fish, whereas the meat of the front part of the beaver is meat. So they would sit down to roasted beaver tails every Friday because they couldn't stomach the idea of actually eating fish. And it's wonderful. What I like about these sort of books is it's where religion and politics and trade and economics meet. You can always judge the extent of the empire of be it the British Empire, the Roman Empire, any empire, by what's on the emperor's table.
It does seem that what we eat is heavily influenced by the shall and shalt nots of the Bible, the famous abominations of the Bible, which have stayed very vivid.
I've always wanted to open a restaurant based around the abominations of the Bible.
And what would you serve?
Abomination. Well, one of my favourite stories is
Deadly Sins.
The Seven Deadly Sins on a plate. There's a great story of during the Franco-Prussian War, the siege of Paris. There's a group of French officers who are desperate for a bang-up Christmas meal. Now, two things happen at the same time. The Tuileries Zoo can't feed its animals, and the restaurant can't find animals to serve. So you get wonderful dishes like roast camel in the English style. And bear fritters. Taboos and food. Taboos and food, I think, is a really interesting subject. Why is it that some people, horse is a delicacy, and yet why must we only kill the uncute animals?
Well, so much much seems to go back, though, to the Bible. This notion that, you know, that you can't eat.
In our culture, yes. In
It does.
white Anglo-Saxon Christian culture, yes.
I mean, you can't have eagle, vulture, swan, owl, pelican, stork, heron. What combines those birds?
They're fatty.
And hard to catch.
Well, hard to catch. Well, actually, we're talking about taboos. You're a man with self-imposed taboos, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a vegan, and so I haven't eaten any animal products for about 10 years, so, you know, I'm very sorry.
You have very clear skin.
Well, thank you very much. We have very good makeup artists here.
And
at
your
the ABCC.
stills must float like a bastard.
Oh, they do. But I wish I could remember the actual book that I read it in, but I eat a lot of mock meat, which, you know, is meat made out of tofu and gluten and stuff, and it's shaped into the shapes. Glorious, like, you know, whole lobsters and duck and beef.
Why do you want it to pretend to be something it isn't, though?
Well, I think it's just so I can eat everything that everyone else can eat without, you know, the cruelty associated with it.
In anticipation of your participation today, I actually went to a vegetarian site, and what I read was someone complaining bitterly that in a recent New Yorker, which had devoted 5 pages to the life of Isaac Bashevis Singer, there had been 12 words on his vegetarianism.
Well, it's because it's boring.
Oh, I'm so glad you said it.
It's boring. I mean, it's what you don't eat, and that's why I love reading books. Like, I read books that make me amazingly hungry, like Marina Lewica's 2 Caravans, where she's writing the stories of these Ukrainian immigrants to the UK, or from all over the world, immigrants to the UK, who have, you know, sort of fallen into this this strawberry picking sort of area, where they haven't got much to eat, but they're making these amazing things with what they've got, you know, herbs that they just find by the side of the road, potatoes growing at the back of the farm, you know, a rabbit that they've found, and just the way that they make
Rabbit?
There's rabbit involved. Oh, yeah, no, there's rabbit and there's sausages. And I'm not reading it going, damn these perfectly drawn characters and their unethical ways, you know, unethical ways. I'm just going, I wonder how I could make a mock meat version of that.
See, this is the sad part where I tell you that tofu is made out of baby fur seal.
Yeah, but baby fur seal don't have any feelings or a nervous system up until they become adult fur seals, so that's quite all right.
You could write a lovely vegan romance and he would say to her, my darling, what a superb complexion you have. And she would say, it's because I'm a vegan. And we'd go on from there.
Then he could look lovingly into her eyes and say, I'm too tired to shag.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my bones are too brittle.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move on to cookbooks, and I will now present my offering, Be Bold with Bananas.
Is that B1 or B2?
This is
See, I'm vegetarian, I can
B bloody everywhere. The whole thing is about bananas. Bananas actually exhibited and attracting many other kinds of food, from chicken to boiled eggs. But the reason I wanted to show you this, because I think the evolution of cookbooks has been one of the quite remarkable things in the last 20 years or so. And I wanted to, this was what cookbooks, to remind you, used to be like. This is presented by the South African Banana Board in 1970.
So they're white bananas only?
I'm going to show you this banana. I just want to, you to all get ready for this exposure, because it is not one for the tender or the easily offended, I warn you right now. But not satisfied with actually preparing bananas to eat, they're using bananas to decorate. And this is a banana candle I'm about to show you. Its ingredients are banana, mayonnaise, and a glacé cherry. Ladies and gentlemen, the banana candle.
Oh, my God.
Wait, somebody think it. Very sorry.
To which I can only say, what were they thinking?
Well,
This is a cookbook. Clearly,
Are you sure?
well, that's cooking, let me tell you.
absolutely sure. So I think that this is the base from which we are working. This is what cookbooks were.
We've come a long way.
Awfully long way. Awfully long way.
Or have we? I mean, let's face it. I mean, you never know whether Nigella Lawson's going to cook the meringue or rub it over her breasts.
Can I raise your banana and stay in the same tropical zone? I've got the Golden Circle Tropical Recipe Book, which takes that, or call it a candle, a banana candle, to its logical conclusion with the sunny sausages that are seen penetrating the pineapple there in some kind of group sex scene.
And Cass, why is that creepy egg watching?
He always does. He's on every page.
The important thing, though, is you know, it's not prurient. They didn't think of it. It obviously was not
They had
intended.
nice minds.
They had nice minds, but also this is what a cookbook could be.
Yes, but also, I mean, you know, jokingly, I made the point about Nigella Lawson, but I mean, let's face it, I mean, cookbooks are now pornography.
Gastro-porn.
Gastro-porn, and let's face it, no one buys a cookbook. I mean, the vast majority of people who buy cookbooks don't cook the recipes.
Yeah, how many recipes do you cook out of a cookbook? Like, you find a couple that you like and that's it. The rest you just go like that.
Well, in fact, you asked the question, Marion, in A Taste of Memory, is there food after coloured photographs?
Well, I do think that coloured pictures did very strange things to the whole business of food, and I think they're extremely ambiguous. I think they're often designed to make us feel really bad. A chef will give us his recipe and there's the picture of what it's supposed to look like. We haven't got a hope in hell if we haven't spent many years kind of perfecting all sorts of arts of getting it to look like that.
I read an article recently where the man talked about two well-curated potato chips. I mean, that's an extreme, but I do find objectionable food that is put on plates to be photographed. It's not about eating, it's about watching. It's actually about distancing us from food.
I'd like to come back to booze we were talking about before. And, of course, you mentioned cannibalism earlier on. I mean, that, of course, is the great taboo. But anything to do with eating human matters. And there was a great account in your book, Plenty gave, what happened when you wanted to make blood sausage using your own blood for the 1993 Symposium of Australian Gastronomy. What reaction from your potential diners?
Well, I'm glad you used the word wanted because, in fact, Marion was at that dinner and might tell you a different side to this. It was an idea which was scotched fairly soon after I mooted it because every one of the cooks in my kitchen, including Yanni Kouritsas, who I would have thought, who loves offal, and I would have thought, and in fact had finessed the perfect recipe for blood sausage, which we served at Barara Waters, pig's blood, I might say. They just put their hands up and said, we're having nothing to do with it, all except one young cook who now has a very successful and terrific restaurant in Sydney. But to me, it's been extraordinary how that idea has stayed alive.
Well, it's a pretty vivid idea.
It's also
very vivid.
But can I say, and I've said this many times, for a cook to make something with my own blood was, in fact, the ultimate generosity. So it was symbolically the most generous thing I could do.
And possibly the only thing at the symposium that I could eat, because there's no animal cruelty involved.
Oh, how interesting.
It's very interesting. We were talking about it on the breakfast show a little while ago about the ethics of eating human flesh. And if it's offered up by the person without a hint of them being forced into it, then it seems ethically completely viable.
Would you have eaten it, Marion? The blood sausage made with gaze blood?
Would I have eaten it? I think so. I mean, we were at a banquet. I mean, word went round that this was the case.
You're allowed to say no at a banquet.
I did eat this blood sausage when people were saying, they say that Kay's made it of her own blood. I don't think most of us really thought that she had, but
she
did eat it.
Wasn't there also at this banquet a tablecloth made entirely of tripe?
Yeah.
It was the most beautiful tablecloth I've ever seen. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Did you take it out for special occasions?
Landscape. It wasn't the tripe that's blanched and just the honeycomb that is in most butcher shops now. It was raw tripe straight from the abattoir, and the cow has 4 stomachs, so they're all slightly different, and the colours ranged from a dun brown to a blackish kind of colour to a dirty white, and we had spent months and months, it wasn't eaten by the way, we had spent months scrubbing that tripe and soaking it in salted water to get rid of mostly the smell rather than the dirt. And it was sewn together with sausage casing so that the whole thing was meat. I suppose, I mean, for myself, and this is often different to the people who eat the meal, who might come away with a different notion of what that meal was about. For me, it was a meal dedicated to meat, thinking it may be the only time I do this or the last time I do this, because I have great sympathy for vegetarianism. But that tablecloth was beautiful, and I think the National Gallery was the right place for it.
It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you very much, all of you. And ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to thank Mikey Robins, Gay Bilson, Lindsay McDougal, Marion Halligan. Thank you very much. And I will see you, I hope, on the first Tuesday in November for our regular book club. Thank you so much for watching, and good night to you all. Good night.